Afternoon guys, Saturday morning again. Back here in the shed. Not my pre-planned video that I was going to do. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube asking sort of advice on what spray guns do you buy for what purposes. If you only had to buy one spray gun, which would be the spray gun of choice. I understand people's budgets are sort of relevant to what they buy. I'm currently running 8 full-size guns. That's very extravagant, to be quite honest. As I probably mentioned, I've mentioned to the gunman, a guy that I talk to in Australia quite a lot. You normally need 2 guns of whatever you buy, whatever manufacturer you choose, whether it be DeVillbiss, Iwata, Sata, whatever. You normally have 2 guns. You try and keep your clear coat gun separate from your base coat gun. It's always a good idea. With that in mind, I'll explain a little bit of the setups and which guns I sort of try and use. If I start at the early end of the scale, then the gun that I've had probably the longest at the moment, it's telling me 2008, Devillbiss GTI Pro. As you can see, 2008 this was made. I have mentioned in my last video, I could have a gun quite a long time, you wouldn't tell it's been used. This one is the same. This has been used hundreds of times. Because I look after the guns, I use my own wash tank. I wash them all individually by hand. I don't like these gizmos that you clamp the trigger, stick it in your wash tank, leave it there squirting away. All the solvent gets into places that it shouldn't get. Air passage is only for air, solvent passage is only for solvent. This is why a lot of you guys out there are changing kits left, right and centre, putting new packing seals in and all sorts, because you managed to get solvent into where it's supposed to go. This little gun, my go-to gun really. I normally stick with a T2 cap in it because it'll shoot everything, base coat, clear coats, whatever. And like I say, I do try and keep my guns separate. This is the only exception to the rule. Rather than taking 2 guns out, doing a job, cleaning 2 guns, this, I put anything through it. Anything from sealer, base coat, clear coats, solvent base, whatever. Because I clean the gun absolutely thoroughly each time, there's no contamination, so I don't damage the gun or whatever. As I say, this one I run a 1.3 tip and the T2 air cap. A good all-round gun. If I was to advise anybody just to buy one gun, that would be the choice. I do have it in a T1, T2, T3 and the HV30 air caps, so I've got choices of what I want to do. So even though I say I might use it for primer, I might use it for a base coat, might use it for clear coat, I would change the air cap to correspond with what I'm using it for. So go-to gun, fantastic gun, great to feel, obviously compliant gun, good all-rounder. So that, I would say, if you just had a couple of £100, wanted to go out and buy a gun, hoping that it would do everything, best bet, best bet. If you're a painter and you're painting all day, every day, if you're doing a lot of resprays where you might have the 1 litre pot on the top of the gun, when you get halfway through a roof or a big panel van that you've got lots of paint in the gun and it's a big heavy gun, I did trial these. Now this is basically that gun. This is just the GTI. They call this the Pro Lite, and its only difference is it's light. The air caps are made lighter with a new anodized lightweight, I suppose it's aluminium type air cap ring. The baffle seal in here is a special plastic rather than steel that's in the other ones. All the fasteners and fixtures are all made lightweight, so this gun really sprays the same as that, but it's lightweight, and you'll benefit from that. That's a great move by DeVilbiss, because a painter, as I say, with 2 or 3 kilograms of weight in your arm all day, plus the weight of the airline, it's heavy. And if you're using heavy bodied primers and things, you'd be surprised at how heavy that gun is. Virtually all my guns, except the Sata, I do use the PPS adapters for most things. I'm aware that people are saying at the moment that the paint doesn't flow exactly true coming out of a PPS cup because there's a little bit of vacuum pulling the pot. They're quite right. I've always compensated quarter of a turn out on your fluid tip, and it'll compensate for that. It's no biggie. It's no biggie. But obviously on the Sata stuff, I do use the RPS system, and yes, it does flow better. So this, once again, this is the one I use for my base coat. So this is set up for 1.3. I always go one nozzle size up for base coat. Once again, TE20. This is a good all-round gun. The option, or the extra option for base coat, is the HV30. Once again, keep the HV30. That'll lay down your base coat as nice as you ever really want it. HVLP, like I was saying in a couple of videos ago, do your wall of air test. The wall of air test in HVLP is closer than a conventional gun, but that will wallop on some paint in good order. Nice wet coat, no dry patches. Not too wet as you're going to run. If you get runs with base coat, you're in trouble. But that is a really sound gun. The accompanying brother to that one is the digital. No difference. Sprays exactly the same as that one. There's no difference whether you put a little conventional gauge for your pressures on the bottom of your airline or whether you go digital. It's just a fashion statement, really. There's no biggie, apart from when you're spraying, you can actually see your pressure. If your compressor's switched on and the pressure's dropped, you can do an instant change. If you have your gauge on the bottom, you've got to look at the gauge to see that there's something that's happened. So for pure visibility, right in the back of the gun, fantastic. This is my clear coat gun. So I've got one Pro Lite for base coat. This is my clear coat. So for clear coat, I go down one size in nozzle. This is a 1.2. I would prefer to put a smaller tip in and reduce my air pressure to get a slightly more orange peel effect, rather than putting a big tip in and needing to go faster because it's walloping out so much more paint. So once again, 1.2 tip. Favourite starting point with air cap, TE20. Start in the middle. TE10 is good. It puts on a really wet finish. I'd use that for a base coat, but I wouldn't use it for a clear coat. And I have to say, I have tried, which isn't meant for these guns, the black cap. It's actually called a T3. I bought this simply because it was cheap. It was like £15–20 on eBay. I thought I'll have it and see what it's for. It's supposed to be for a pressure fed system, but what I have found is if you use it on these guns, it's very, very close to a T110, which I have a T110 as well, and I've compared them side by side in two guns side by side, and from the eye I can't tell if that's any different. So the T3, even though it's not meant for a gravity fed gun, does work, and it works rather well. So that's my sort of DeVilbiss sort of statement on the spray guns. I'll now move to Iwata. Japanese guns. So from my mind, paint the Japanese finishes the best. Japanese finish is very fine orange peel. Not a very thick depth of paint on the cars. It's quite a fine finish. It's sort of a 1.5 coat finish, I'd call it, rather than a 2 coat finish. Once again, you need two guns. I prefer not to mix up your clear coat gun in your top line guns. The Bellaria, fantastic little gun, traditional. I've got a pair of the Iwata Supernovas, and to be fair, they don't paint any different to these. They're a good gun. They're a much prettier gun. Obviously it's a cosmetic change rather than a painting change. W400 Classic, fantastic gun yet again. The Bellaria has been set up with a conventional fluid tip, and I'll show you what you mean in the other guns in a moment. The fluid tip itself is just a conventional fluid tip. There's no trickery going on in there. With the water-based gun and the WBX setups and whatever, there's actually a special tip that's actually ground. There's a little cross ground into the tip, and that's for pre-atomization of the paint, and it works fantastic. But if you're clumsy enough to wash it in correctly and dent the end of it, your spray patterns will be all over the place. So if you're using a gun everyday environment, you might have to wash the gun 10 times a day. I'd stay away from it, because you're going to dump it, and that's going to cost you lots of money. They're about 100 quid a set, so that's expensive. This one, conventional tip, once again, these guns spray a little bit drier. Should I say drier? A little bit less material comes out of these guns conventionally. If you're using a DeVilbiss and you go to an Iwata, I would go up one nozzle size. So with this one, I don't use the 1.2s. I use the 1.3s and the 1.4s, just to get them a little bit wetter. They've got a bigger fan pattern, so huge fan. So with that, you either go slower when you're using the gun, or up a nozzle size and maintain the same speed as you would with a DeVilbiss, which is great, which is where I go. So this gun has been designed for base coat and clear coat out the same gun. No special trickery, no special caps. The Valeria, which means beautiful air, I believe. Fantastic, can't knock it. Once again, conventional type pressure gauge screws on the end. Basic setting, 2 bar for most things. With all these guns, they all seem to have a sensible range of, when you set the gun up, full fan is normally where all of them are designed to be used. Apart from the Satas, they're slightly under full fan, I found the best. 2.5 turns out on the fluid, all of them. Start there. It's a great place to start. If you're not an everyday painter and you think you might get runs and things on the tricky corners and edges, just shut it down. Start at 1.5 turns. That'll be fine. That'll be fine. With that, I have also the base coat gun. Blue cap base coat gun. Still a classic, still the same gun. Some big holes in the wind port of the air cap. You can see that on camera. So some nice big holes, lots of atomization, lots of air going through the gun. Good gun. Now this is the special tip, and I hope the camera can pick this up. I'll come as close as I can. Can you see in the end of the fluid tip there, it's actually a machine ground 3-sided star, and some of them have the 4-sided star as well. That is pre-atomization of the paint. As the paint comes through the nozzle, it sort of tears and starts breaking up the paint, which means that the air cap doesn't need to do so much work. Half of it's already broken up to start with. The hardest part of atomizing of the cap is breaking up the puddle of paint as soon as it comes through the needle. Once it's come out about sort of so distance, a few millimeters, whatever, then the air cap can burst it into life and atomize it nice. So blue air cap for base coat. Same process again, needle, 2.5 turns, air cap, the fan control, fully out, not a problem. I do have, if I was putting on a sealer or what with any of the Iwatas, I do have the LV2 standard air cap, and I do have 1.3, 1.4 and 1.6 fluid tips and needle setups. So I've got different setups for all. Also with the Valeria, I do switch over sometimes. If I'm trying to do a finish on a more European car, and I want a bit more paint out, a little bit more orange peel, but that's the gun I got in the workshop at the time. I did buy the 1.4 HD needle and nozzle tip, which has the 4 slots cut in that needle, and the very trick WBX air cap. I'm sure my stuff all gets put back away in boxes and packets and things. There's nothing wrong with looking after your kit when you spend thousands of pounds on guns. That there, WBX air cap, astounding air cap. That will put clear on like you've never seen before. So yeah, once again, with advice, any gun that you buy, you'll choose a base gun. like I say, whether it be a 1.3, 1.4, even 1.2, whatever you buy will be a base gun. But there will be times that you need to switch up to change those little bits and pieces. Once again, painters are no longer just matching colours, they're matching finishes, they're actually managing the amount of shine, they're managing the amount of orange peel, the depth of gloss. There's so many things that you have to work with to say, I can't see where I've painted that car, and that's what you're after at the end of the day. Right, I'll go on now to Satas. I'll start off with being honest. I absolutely loved the Sata 2000 in the NR range or the RP. Stunning gun, felt great to the hand, painted phenomenal, no issues whatsoever. So obviously when they brought out the 3000, let's jump on board straight away, get the 3000. I can only say I was really disappointed. It painted like a hose. If you could get a garden hose, put your tip on the end and try and make a fan as if you were painting with something, that's to me has it come. I just could not find the right setting, the right pressures, just to get a nice finish without going like a bat out of hell. It's literally, I've watched other YouTube guys on there and they're painting with a Sata and they're doing this, the gun is going backwards and forwards. You shouldn't paint like that. Painting should be easy. The paint should flow out the gun. It should be an absolute desire to paint. You should just watch the paint going on and put a smile on your face all the time. A nice, consistent, slow rate. There's no way flicking the gun around like this should be done to compensate how the gun paints. So when I bought the 4000 out, I thought for probably a year, shall I, shan't I, shall I, shan't I? And I'm glad I did. Because they obviously addressed the issues of walloping out the paint. These guns, 4000. Now I bought this one in the HVLP. I did have the RP, but I no longer got that one. I changed it for the 5000. I chose the HVLP. Water-based base coats is where we are today, whether it be a solid colour or metallic. Water-based base coats is where we are. I just knew, and it was only a guess really, this was the man for the job.